So here we are then, guys. 53 years later, eh? 53 years ago, Bruce left us. What can't we say about Bruce? You know, I've said it before, like everybody says, what he was and what he means to them and everything else. I was 7 years old when Bruce died, and obviously I didn't know he died. That was 1973. I was 7. I had no idea Bruce was even dead. I didn't even know Bruce had died until 1974. So it just goes to show you don't know anything when you're a kid. It was only when I started seeing his posters in 74. I seen a poster from Enter the Dragon in 74. Well, I think there was 2 from 74. One with the cuts and one with the nunchucks, which I bought from 74. All I can say is, that's the first posters I bought. And then I bought a magazine, a couple of magazines on him. Then obviously we didn't have a great deal here in the UK, mind. It's not something that was high on shop selling. So we had to be very thankful for what we could get. And obviously I bought a magazine in there, and I can't remember which one it was. And then obviously there was a picture in there of the gravestone with Bruce, his name on and that, and obviously the date he died. So then would have been the day that I knew that Bruce was already gone. Strange, and I started seeing him then and didn't even know who he was until I seen those pictures, seen the posters. Back then, you could get that's like the posters, what was rolled up posters, what you used to get from record stores and stuff like that, or any other news agents, what would sell them. So, and you could even pick them up at fairgrounds, because obviously I used to go to the fair a lot when I was a kid, and I used to get posters there. And I probably ended up getting a Bruce one there as well. I can't be sure, but it sure as hell rings a bell. But no, I didn't even know Bruce had gone until then. So I ain't nothing. I ain't nobody what knows a lot about Bruce, and I would never say I do know an awful lot about him. I only know what I've read and what people have told me and everything else. I don't claim to be a historian on Bruce, because I certainly am not. All I know is, it was. I can't imagine life without Bruce being in it. I see Bruce every single day in my house. That since I've had all my stuff put up and everything else, there's probably not a day goes past when he doesn't come into your thoughts, because that's how it is. But yeah, I mean, great times being a kid. I remember when I first seen some footage on Bruce. Obviously young, it was like 8mm stuff, like the Enter the Dragon trailer and the Big Boss trailer and stuff like that. That's how I first seen Bruce. Because obviously when Bruce was at the cinema, obviously 1973, whatever, you weren't getting into the cinema at 7, 8 years old. Very, very strict in them days. You'd have never got in. So for me, I had to wait, unfortunately, and I did. And eventually, like I said, the trailers and that was the first things I ever bought, which was in the 70s. And because I used to have a super 8mm projector, and that is how I first seen Bruce. And I was a kid, I was young, and I can remember like kids from school coming around and showing them, and we used to go in the garden and like try to do kung fu and that, and I'd try and do fight scenes out there with like one person taking on 6 or 7 people. It was funny, but that's what you used to do. And making up me nunchucks, going down to the hardware store and buying a broomstick handle and getting a piece of chain and the two little hooks and banging them in, cutting a chain roughly the right length, banging them in the tops of the wood, and there's your homemade nunchucks. Because obviously back then you couldn't buy them, and then eventually I started seeing them in martial arts magazines and that, and obviously I bought some then, and they were obviously a lot better than what I made myself. But that's how it was back then. You had to make do with what you could get. But it was great times, and we had in the UK we had the kung fu boom of the 70s, and I thank Bruce for that, and I think everybody else thanks Bruce for that, because if it wasn't for Bruce, I don't honestly think there would have been a kung fu boom in the UK. I mean, after Enter the Dragon come out of the cinema and everything else, everything changed then, and there was other martial arts films around, obviously, but they're not Bruce. And you watch a lot of the other ones back in the days, and let's be honest, there was only a few good ones. Most were terrible, terrible acting, terrible fighting. I remember sometimes I used to watch the fighting and think, my God, it is rubbish. And I used to think, Jesus Christ, I could see people fighting better than the street than what they were. But obviously, it was a little bit different when Bruce came out, because obviously his fighting was out of this world. So much better than the rubbish that other stuff being put out. So yeah, great times. Like I said, 53 years later, and well, I don't know where I'd be without Bruce. He's inspired me, for lots of things. I I did various martial arts training throughout the years. Always done like fitness training and stuff, boxing training, and that, and always been quite fit most of my life. And from when I started training, when I was at the bottom school in high school in 1977 and 78. I wasn't much back then, and when I went up to the top school, I changed and started doing weights and stuff, more training, and I changed as a person, and you become a lot better. And I wasn't being picked on anymore then. If anything, it would have been me doing the picking, not them. But I can remember being bullied a little bit in the bottom school, because that's how it was. When you're like 11-year-old kid going into a big school for the first time, and you've only got two mates with you from your junior school, it's very daunting seeing all those different kids and that, and it's quite scary for somebody who's 11 years old. And most of you have probably been through that, so you know damn well what I'm talking about. And back then, you used to get whacked, and teachers used to whack you. Christ, I had teachers that used to whack me, punch me, kick me, pull me hair, twist me ears, kick me in the shin, you name it, they did it. Obviously, they don't do that stuff anymore, but I don't worry. You used to get a clip round the ear from coppers as well in the street, but that's how life was. And I turned out okay. A little bit of discipline didn't do anybody any harm, and you've only got to look at the kids of today to realize how bad they are, because they have no discipline. And it's a completely different world we live in now. I'm blessed to say, I grew up in the 70s, and I would never give my time up back then. I had a great life as a kid, and I wouldn't give my time up to be born again now with the rubbish society we live in now. That's the good thing. But 53 years later, look at everybody. We're still talking about Bruce. Bruce is still here. He's probably bigger now than he's ever been. I got friends all around the world, collectors, and maybe some not collectors, but just Bruce fans. I visited some. I've been to Bruce's grave in Seattle. I've been to San Francisco. We've seen some places where he used to live in Chinatown and stuff, and been to LA, a couple of places where Bruce used to be around there, and it's great. I go there. I've been there a few times, and it's great to go there. It's a very strange feeling when I went to Bruce's grave. Quite an eerie feeling. We got there quite early in the morning, and we was the only two there, and it's a really, really strange feeling knowing that you're like that close to Bruce, even though he's gone. But Bruce is there, and that's the closest you'll ever get to being with him. But yeah, I mean, I only thank God that we had Bruce for 32 years. Born in 1940, he died in 1973, 32 years old. We have to be thankful that we had Bruce for those 32 years. You know, I see Bruce every day in the home, and to me, he's forever young, and he is because he died when he was young, so you don't see pictures of him when he's old, like some other stars who's died young. They're forever young because they die young, and that true saying, only the good die young. Bruce sure as hell didn't deserve to die at that age, just becoming a global superstar and that, like he always wanted to be. He just wanted to be, a superstar like his friend Steve McQueen. And I think Bruce said one day he might be bigger than Steve McQueen. And I honestly think if Bruce had lived to see the opening event of the Dragon, then maybe he would have been. And can you imagine the offers Bruce would have been getting then? He worked through all that bad times with the prejudice against him and everything else, but he stuck with it. And look what he become. Like you said, he's probably more famous now than he's ever been. And, there's young kids getting into him now and they'll carry on. And, but no, I just think, yeah, great times. I'm so, so glad that I was part of that era in the 70s. It's a great era, and I wouldn't give that away for nothing. But there you go. Bloody hell, I'm harping on here. Sometimes I get going when I'm chatting, and I tend to talk for ages. But I know most of you seen my room. This is my room. I sleep in here as well. My bed's in here. But I'm just getting up now. But this is my room. But I know everybody's seen it. But and there's me at Bruce's grave. Look, there's the proof. Look, that's me stood there. It was quite a while ago before they put that awful gate thing around it. I think it was better back then, to be honest with you, than what it is now. But the superstar Bruce, and you'll always be a superstar to me, and you'll always be the best. And I just want to say, I'm so, so glad that I got into Bruce, and I don't ever wish anything different. And that's probably it for what I'm going to say. That's 15 minutes now. So Bruce's anniversary today, 53 years ago. God bless you, Bruce. And yeah, that's all we can say. God bless you, and cheers for watching, guys.